What's up, YouTube? You know what? Today I've decided to bring you not a draft, but the actual top 10 fantasy receivers this year in all of fantasy football. So, without further ado, let's start this off. Here we go. First player, Justin Jefferson. With the Minnesota Vikings, the guy is phenomenal. He gets open on just about every route. And on top of that, he had 128 receptions, which led all other players last season. Besides one other player, it led everybody, and he had 8 touchdowns to go along with it, 1,800 yards. Basically, he's in the top. You can only assume he's going to get a little bit more target share this year with one player left, but they still have Jordan Addison. So, similar target share. He had 300 points last year. He might be able to get some more touchdowns, is what I'm saying. If he gets more touchdowns, he had 8. If he can get 10, some even more, he could get over 300 yards. So 300 points. So that's clear. That's Justin Jefferson. Clear number one. At number two, it's a player who is projected to have similar numbers to Justin Jefferson. But here's the only difference. He was injured part of last season, so his numbers aren't as high. So basically, that's Ja'Marr Chase. He had only 87 receptions last year. That almost matches his rookie numbers. He had less yards in his rookie season and less touchdowns. Basically, he still had 9 touchdowns, which is more touchdowns than Justin Jefferson. Keep that in mind. But if Ja'Marr Chase had more receptions last year and he wasn't hurt, you could project him to score even higher than Justin Jefferson because he has more touchdowns in less games, fewer receptions, and he's 800 yards away still from Justin Jefferson, but he still had 9 touchdowns. Uh, I mean 800, not if I said receptions, I mean yards. Yeah, man. If he does better than his rookie year and he combines it with a healthy season and does anything like he did in the games that he was playing last year, he's gonna have more than Justin Jefferson. Like you gotta get that off the top. But Justin Jefferson put up such good numbers last year. If he just had some more touchdowns, you wouldn't even be close. So it's Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, one of those two. Next player on my list, I actually went ahead and I went with Cooper Kupp. And the reason I went with Cooper Kupp is because of not what he did last season. He was injured. His quarterback was injured. So by the time he was playing, the quarterback was injured. And while he was injured, that's when the starting quarterback was actually in play. So it makes no sense for for you to even rate anything based off of last season for Cooper Kupp. He still had 75 receptions, which it's not that many. He still almost had 1,000 yards at 800. Um, Put up 6 tutties. But then you look at the season before when he was healthy and he had a healthy quarterback playing. He had 145 receptions. No one's even close to 145. No one's close to 145 at all on this list at all. So his season alone from 2 years ago gives him reason for being up here. If people are just stay healthy, he's still the top receiver on the team, and he puts up incredible points, incredible yards. In that season from 2 years ago, he had 16 touchdowns. No one even touches that. It's not even close. So Ja'Marr Chase, he put up 13 one year. Justin Jefferson put up 8. He put up 6 and barely playing. 6 touchdowns, barely playing. So if you project that to him having a starting quarterback and playing, being on the field, ball getting worked, he's still the number one receiver by a mile. He's going to have, man, over 10 touchdowns, and you want to say over 1,500 yards. That's off the top. Cooper Kupp, bang, bang. You just expect him to have a big season. All right, next player. Next player. It was hard to not put this guy at number 3. I ended up putting him at number 4, right next to it. He had 119 receptions. This is last year on a new team. Everyone thinks like he might do worse, but actually he put up more receptions than in Kansas City, more yards, and less touchdowns. That's the thing. He was putting up way fewer touchdowns than what he did in Kansas City. So you look at him here, 119 receptions, 1,700 yards. The only reason you take kind of an issue with this guy is because he's not the clear-cut number one. He is the number one, obviously, but Jalen Waddle is so close on that team that that's why you don't want to put him above these other guys, because if one of these cats is playing well, Tyreek Hill, if he plays well, then Jalen Waddle is going to get some targets and get open, and Jalen Waddle is going to play well. It's basically each half it changes, it goes off and off each other. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, such a killer combination that you can't put him as a clear-cut number one or put him over these other players because he's not the clear-cut number one. So that's the only thing, and he is obviously gonna get the most target share in Miami, but there's another player right next to him who's has similar athleticism and can do similar things on the football field. So for that reason, he put up amazing points last year. If he puts up close to points, I don't think he's gonna. That's the thing about him. I don't think he's gonna do much better than last season. And I could be wrong here. I could be wrong. He could get 20 more receptions than last year with 2 on the field, and 20 more receptions and 3 more touchdowns and that many more yards. That would be amazing. If he did that, he would probably increase by a couple hundred. He could break that 2,000 mark. But with Jalen Waddle there, it doesn't seem like it's actually going to be realistic for him to do that. It seems like Jalen Waddle is going to get some targets, and that's why Tyreek Hill gets taken away a little bit. Next player, I'm going right to Davante Adams, the number one receiver all of last season. He's number one. He would have had to have been, or I'm sorry, he was the number 2 receiver last year next to Justin Jefferson, but he had way more touchdowns. So not sorry about anything. He basically was the number 1 receiver. So I don't gotta be feeling any type of way. He basically was number 1 receiver with only 100 receptions. He put up 1,500 yards and 14 tutties. He's just a tutty machine. So the only reason he's down here and not number 2 or number 1 is because he has a new quarterback in the building. With a new quarterback in the house, it takes away, you got to think it's going to take away from his receptions. He doesn't have the same chemistry. But again, last year was him with a new quarterback as well, so you could just say he's an amazing player. It's just what he does. You know, he gets these points no matter what's going on. And I want to give it to him. That's why I put him at 5, but I couldn't put him above these other players. So he still got the targets last season with a new quarterback. Can he do the same now with a new quarterback in the house? I guess the only difference is the quarterback from last year wasn't new to there, but instead Davante Adams was new to the system. So he just stepped in, and there was already a quarterback that was running all the same plays. This is a new quarterback from somewhere else who might have a worse arm than the other quarterback. So that's where it comes into play. The quarterback is really the issue. My next player, all right, this guy is above the rest because of his quarterback. An amazing player. He gets open so many times, and he constantly, even in the cold games, you know, you want to say cold games, he's gonna play worse, but he doesn't at all. In fact, he increases his targets. Well, he did last season to the year before, but bro, he's gotten 127 targets, 103 receptions, 127 in his first year in Buffalo, 103 his next season, and 108 in the season after that. So, you know, that's more receptions than Davante Adams and close to similar touchdowns. He had 11 touchdowns last season and 10 the season before that. So it's not at that 16 mark that Cooper Kupp had, but 10 receptions. If he plays similarly, he's going to put up big numbers, but you kind of expect him to have an even bigger season. Considered he had 127 receptions his first year, I could see him doing even better things this upcoming season. And his quarterback keeps developing, getting better. So with his quarterback being that good, you just assume that his top receiver and friend is gonna play well with him. That chemistry, Josh Allen's like he still put up 11 touchdowns. Even Josh Allen put up 400 points, but he sort of wasn't playing as well at the back end of the season, wasn't throwing for as many touchdowns as usual. So if he plays consistently this whole year, being the top quarterback that I'm pretty sure he is, then Stephon Diggs, his stats go up even more. So that's why he's at the 6th position. Now, next up, had to give it up for A.J. Brown. The reason I put A.J. Brown at 7 is because he got way less targets than these other cats. Way less targets, you got to know that. But at the same time, he put up the same touchdown rating as Stephon Diggs. And his quarterback just got an extension. They believe in the quarterback. So I think there's a drop between Stephon Diggs and A.J. Brown. But, man, this year, A.J. Brown could put up way more than 88 receptions. All right, he had 88 receptions. He could be thrown in. I could see him. He has another player, Devontae Smith, who takes away from his production, or maybe it helps. They play side to side, but basically that's the reason he didn't have 120 receptions. It's because he's got a guy next to him who's that good. So that's sort of the mix-up. Yeah, I mean, I think he could get even more target share. It was only his first season, and we saw with other players like Davante Adams. Davante Adams had 120 receptions, I want to say, in Green Bay, and then the next season he only had 100 receptions with his new team. So you could project A.J. Brown to have a whole other 20 receptions. So that's 108 receptions. And still with 88 receptions, which was his last year set, man, he put up 11 touchdowns. So I'm thinking with 20 more receptions, more targets towards him, he could put up 15. All right, we give him 15. It makes him a top receiver, right up in this 3-4 mix. But if any of the other, I can't see him being the number one. That's my hold with A.J. Brown. I think these other cats could be the number one. A.J. Brown probably 20 targets away from being that number one. So if he can do that and get the touchdowns, he could be right up here with them. So that's A.J. Brown. My next player, Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson, the thing about him is he was a rookie last season, and he had the same number of receptions, 5 less receptions as A.J. Brown. Now, the big knock with him is he didn't put up the touchdowns. So he had all these receptions, really good for a rookie. Keep that in mind. He had a bunch of yards, but he didn't put up the touchdowns. He only had 4 touchdowns last season, but he had 1,100 yards. So let's say, and that was with two different quarterbacks in the mix who aren't esteemed as one of the top quarterbacks in the league at all. They're not particularly good quarterbacks at all. So you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Now we saw what Aaron Rodgers did with Davante Adams. You saw their connection. Davante was getting over 120 receptions every game, every year. So you think about Garrett Wilson with his new quarterback. If he builds chemistry, Garrett Wilson is the number one receiver there. That's why I put him here. I think with a new quarterback, he could be projected. And considering he was only a rookie, which most people bounce up by 20